When it comes to the making of horror movies, here's an interesting phenomenon. If the horror movie becomes a cult hit or gains any kind of prominence or repute, worldwide distribution or just American distribution, oftentimes where that movie was shot, the location itself becomes a tourist attraction. With Psycho, the Bates Motel and the house where our psycho brutalized killer's mother lived and was murdered has become a spot for the tour at Universal Studios. Now we know that this house was modeled after a painting of Edward Hopper's, but now it's become a big visitation location, and it's spooky as it was in the movie if you ever go inside. Most horror movies, however, weren't shot on studios, they were shot on locations, and those locations, for the most part, still exist, only in a new incarnation. Here we have the house where Texas Chainsaw Massacre took place in Texas. It now has been converted into a restaurant. So if you go there, you can imagine flashing back on some of the scenes where the chainsaw revs up as you bite into your very rare hamburger, and you maybe experience some of the gore and transfer that experience into eating of a meal. I don't know, but apparently it's a very popular restaurant. When we had shot Halloween, we used a nice nondescript clapboard house, which is now the office for a chiropractor. I don't know if it seems fitting that Michael Myers running after, people and brutalizing them, go into how a chiropractor might visualize his patient, but it's an interesting change in location there. Here we have Camp Crystal Lake, which is made famous in Friday the 13th movies. There's a score of Friday the 13th movies that go up to this placid lake. It's dark and gloomy, but once those movies get going, of course, we have our teenage victims swimming for help are ending up being victims. It's a signature location, and Friday the 13th wouldn't be anything without it. And of course, now it's no longer a setting for Hollywood 13th movies. It's Welcome to Camp Crystal Lake. It's a Boy Scout retreat. So I imagine when they do their campfires late at night, the stories are quite interesting if any of the kids have seen the Hollywood Friday the 13th movies. The diner that, I forgot which incarnation of Friday the 13th, had the diner where everybody's chopped up and served as meals, kind of like Titus Andronicus. That diner outside Crystal Lake still exists to this day. So similar to Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you can go to the diner and get your hamburger. This location everybody should probably remember as the location for Nightmare on Elm Street, and it still exists. I think it was for sale recently, but somebody bought it. Nice, calm looking house in a nice neighborhood. At night, I wonder, when the lights go on, whether it's as spooky as the movie here. Certainly, that nice exterior hides what happened when we shot the movie, which, of course, where the horrific nightmares take place. And when we talk about Nightmare on Elm Street, the Marshall High School that had some very horrific scenes still exists, and I doubt if these scenes exist in the high school, but that location should be and is very intriguing for all the students going there. Here we have the house from the Amityville Horror, which was on the sales block a while ago. I don't know if anybody purchased it yet, but if one did purchase this house, I wonder if they have ever seen the movie, so that if they go up the stairs at night, they might have a little hesitation if the lights aren't really bright. Here we have the location in Maryland of Blair Witch Project. And if you go in those woods, they're the same woods that the Blair Witch Project was shot in, and perhaps as you walk through, you can feel the same kind of fear. Here, this church still exists in New Jersey from the Omen. So again, one wonders, as if they're part of this church and congregation, one wonders if they have a baptism, whether there's any kind of feeling they have if they've ever seen the Omen. Here, Central Park West, we have the Dakota. Dakota's famous for many things, one of which, if you look at the lower left archway there, that's the entrance to the Dakota where John Lennon was shot. But it was also where Rosemary's Baby was shot. So I always think of whoever's living in the Dakota now, do they have that same feeling, rich interior of Rosemary's Baby? Do they feel like there's some kind of haunted, spectral ghost that invades the premises of that place? Or do they just imagine there's another apartment house? Here we have the last house on the left, which exists as a house, apparently. And again, I wonder if the people in this house, if their cocktail parties have any kind of extra tension, or if they have a candlelit dinner, do they think of the movie that was made there 20 years earlier? And certainly if they take a walk outside this house, how at ease are they if they've ever seen this movie, considering what might bump or jump out of the woods, and do they ever imagine themselves in this position? Who knows? Maybe they've barred themselves from seeing the movie, and so never have to worry about it. But what I'm trying to say here is, we can take these horrific settings and turn them into restaurants, offices, and houses where we raise our children. But what's interesting about the locations and what I'm trying to explain when we talk about establishing shots is, it's nice to have a conflict or a contrast. So when you get into the action of a horror movie, it's more jarring if we don't anticipate the horrific things that happen. So horror movies often take those nice Nightmare on Elm Street bland exteriors and hide dark things. And here we have funny games, and we have a house that's on the cove. It's a breezy white with innocence in this shot. Handke directed it. Breezy white innocence to it, but when the violence happens, look at how the light changes to a cold blue lighting for the violence. This is to think about our lighting exercise from last week. And then when it really gets down and dirty, the dark tungsten torture, when we get deeper in the movie. Just those three, that scale of lighting follows the mood. So light exteriors, like in The Stepfather here, should hide dark interiors, is what I'm saying.